Yesterday I was up in Ithaca for a church conference on leadership and partnership. I had a brief presentation that I did in the morning, and by midday my energy was flagging. There was still a couple more hours worth of the conference, but I was ready for a nap. So after lunch, I went out for a walk, hoping to, keep myself awake. Someone suggested a park that was only 2 blocks away from the church, and I was surprised. I've been visiting that Ithaca Unitarian Universalist Church for over a dozen years, and I had no idea that the bottom of the Cascabilla Gorge is right around the corner, just a few blocks from the center of town. I was delightfully surprised to discover this park, and it was refreshing. It helped me get through the rest of the conference. Brian Swim once said, "Our universe is a universe of surprise." I'm sure he meant it in a grander fashion than I am suggesting in my little anecdote. Although, I think that part of the point is to learn to appreciate those surprises, to bring a mindset of wonder so that our eyes will be ready. The reading by Brian Swim this morning is in response to a question from a youth. How can I learn about my creativity? This teenager asked Brian Swim. And so Brian Swim responds, as I'm sure any of us would, by talking about galaxies and elementary particles and the grand adventure of the universe. Our universe is a universe of surprise, he says. It's an enormous act of creativity. There's always something new arising. Creation is an ongoing interchange available at every moment, in every aspect of the universe. In describing how we participate in creation, Swim writes, "The intelligence that ignited the first minds, that care that spaced the notes of the nightingale, the power that heaved 10 billion galaxies across the sky, now awakens as you and permeates your life no less thoroughly." We are the earth. Michael Dowd likes to say, we grew out of the earth as a peach grows out of a peach tree. We are the local embodiment of the universe. Whitman famously said, "I believe a leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars," meaning that we are as well. So, to learn about your creativity, look to the creativity of the great rolling and unfolding, amazing and multi-connected universe of which we are a part. Early in my ministry, I learned the importance of talking about evolution from a religious and even mythic perspective. Evolution is not only a scientific understanding, it is also a story of who we were and are and yet shall be. Throughout the ages, religions have considered creation to be the work of God. Where did we come from? Where did everything come from? Many religious people quickly answer, from God. And evolutionary scientists counter, no, we evolved. But what if it isn't an argument? What if both answers are true? Early in my ministry, that is the conclusion that I struggled to articulate. Both answers are true. Here's how it works for me, my creative answer. I begin with my experiences of life, rather than a set of theories or doctrines about reality. My experience leads me to understand that my small corner of the universe at least, is dynamic and evolving. And that matches much of what scientists say. My experience also leads me to see that there is a holiness that pervades all life. And that's what liberal theology likes to say as well. Everything is holy now. In seminary, we talked about this with words like incarnational theology. It is the theology that speaks of the Spirit in the material. For Christianity, this tends to be focalized in the person of Jesus. Jesus is the incarnation, the embodiment of God in humanity. And of course, most liberal Christians continue and acknowledge that while Jesus is the particular incarnation of God, all people have some God within. They say all of humanity has a spark of the divine, and we Unitarian Universalists really like that part. We speak about everyone and everything as embodying the holy. This idea shows up very early in Scripture, in the first chapter of Genesis, in fact, when God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." And so God created man in his own image, and in the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Embodied theology. There in the biblical story of creation is this creative notion that we have a little bit of divinity in each of us. And then, for ages since, theologians have argued about what exactly is that image or likeness of God in us. Christian theologians agree that we all have that imago Dei. And then, despite the classic art and contemporary cartoons depicting God as an old man, a little like Zeus or a cuddly version of Odin, few theologians seriously suggest that God looks like us or that we look like God physically. So if we set aside that literal interpretation, what are the other options theologians offer us? So early church people like Ambrose said that the soul was the image. Athanasius claimed that it was our rationality. Oh, St. Augustine, he suggested a mirror of the Trinity of the Godhead. Surprise, surprise. That the image of God within us is the triune faculties of memory, intelligence, and love. Early mystics actually proposed that the image of God was in sexual union, or reunion, they would suggest, of a man and a woman. Reformers, such as John Calvin, insisted that the image of God was our original righteousness prior to the fall into sin, which means we don't have it anymore. Jewish theologians commend self-consciousness or self-determination, or even our innate nobility as the image of God. Well, early Universalists spoke of the image of God as the reason God's love includes everyone. And by extension, that image of God in us is our capacity to love others. And the early Unitarians, particularly William Ellery Channing on the American Unitarian side, proposed our capacity to be good is the image of God because God is morally perfect. And therefore, we have that as a reflection in us. So one of the things that I discovered in looking through the history of these ideas is a piece from Karl Barth, who acknowledges a crucial point, that throughout the history of this, each interpreter has been steeped in the context of their own era and culture. Thus, all of these different interpretations of the image of God say more about the interpreters and their cultural context than they do about God or the reality of existence or of human nature. In essence, whatever we would name to be the best quality of humanity, the finest attribute to which we aspire, That's the image of God. So when I suggest that the image of God is really our capacity to participate in creation, our creativity, you can be assured that I'm telling you the final truth. But not about God, only about my context. My own understanding of God is informed by process theology. I see the holy as a constant flow of unfolding energy. It is the spirit of becoming, leading into the next aspect of life. Thus, the image of God from where I'm sitting is tied into that process, that which is constantly in creation in us, that it's spinning and becoming. So shifting gears just a little bit, as I look around on Earth Day coming up, and all of these activities that we're doing with the Green Sanctuary and the CUPS group, all that's going on with climate crisis in the world, I sometimes wonder if this spinning I'm talking about is actually us spinning a little out of control. Have you ever ridden the teacup ride on the carnival? I remember one time when our daughter Bryn was 3 years old, there was this rinky-dinky little carnival that was set up in the parking lot of a rundown mall, and they had very little business at that hour, and we climbed into the teacup ride. She was so excited. The operator smiled at us, and he started up the ride, and if you know what this ride does, it starts out slow, just making a big circle, and it builds up speed. And each teacup can also spin, and if you do it right, you can get your cup to spin a little faster, right? So we're starting up, my daughter's grinning, and I lean in and I look at her and I say, "Do you want to go faster?" And she says, "Yeah." And so I don't remember the physics of how this exactly works, if I lean in or if I lean back, but I did whichever the thing is that makes the thing go faster, and we started whipping around. And all of the blood drained out of her face. And the operator of the ride saw this and shut the ride down really fast. Nice guy. I bought her some ice cream to help, perk her back up. And I double-checked online last night to see if my memory of this ride was accurate. And I found this line: under modern H&S guidelines, children's rides should not spin faster than 8 times per minute. Well, we were like 8 times per second. My point in telling you this story is that, like the mechanical teacup ride, we can manipulate the situation to spin faster if we want to. In the past century or so, the human species has made great strides in eradicating some major diseases. We've dramatically extended the average lifespan, and we've created an abundance of luxury available at our fingertips, or at least at the fingertips of some. Our distribution of the abundance we have extracted from the earth is still problematic, but the amount is indisputable. We have pushed the carrying capacity of this ride well beyond the limit, because we've manipulated it to spin faster. We are spinning our teacup beyond the guidelines for such a ride, spinning faster than is recommended, and we are a little out of alignment. How long will it hold? A few weeks back at our question box sermon, I answered a question about climate change with Joanna Macy's 3 responses. Some say, some stay in denial, refusing to acknowledge the looming disruption. Some succumb to despair, seeing no hope for this coming despair, this coming distraction. I refuse to either ignore the situation or despair at our chances. And Joanna Macy proposes a third way, the way of the great turning, the choice to hold hope. I remain hopeful that we will harness the creative resilience that has been the mark of our species throughout time. That is the image of God in us, in fact. New solutions are always unfolding in many ways. The biggest trick is to adjust our perspective enough to recenter our values on creativity, to have our eyes ready for wonder. The root language connection between creation and creativity is obvious. Artists are creators, and we have devalued creativity in our society. Our creativity is rooted in nature and our nature as humans and in the earth. Our creativity is important. It's something we ought to honor in our world. Do you sing or paint, sculpt or garden? Do you work with new ideas and concepts? Do you write poems or stories? It is holy work because it is creative work. If creation is the purview of the gods, then artists and mothers are the most holy people on this earth. How can you learn about your creativity? The youth asks Brian Swim, how can I learn about my creativity? Look to the earth, he responds. Look to the whole universe and the grand adventure of creation ongoing. Go walk in the park by the base of the gorge and wake up. Seek the creative exchange of the universe in you. Starhawk, in her book Earth Path, writes, we are not separate from nature. We are, in fact, nature. The spirituality retreat that we've got coming up this coming weekend, we always set aside a time at that retreat in the afternoon. Hours, 2 full hours of unstructured time out in the woods and by the lake. We tell people, go out and be in the woods. Walk around the lake, take a nap on the grass, walk in the beauty alone or in company. It's not something extra. It is a key piece to the schedule. Our world needs our creativity. The image of God is our capacity to create. It is also the image of the earth and the universe stamped as an identity on our own souls. We are one with the creative creation in which we live. How can I learn about my creativity? In exchange with all creation. The earth and you give and receive together. You are creative because you are the earth, because you have the image of God within you. And this spinning, unfolding, majestic, multi-connected universe is in you. And our universe is a universe of surprise. In a world without end, may it be so. Let us join in singing our closing hymn, number 21 in our hymnals, For the Beauty of the Earth.